Easy E, how are we?
Johnny, what's happening?
Happy Bridget's Day, I suppose, and we're ending the bank holiday weekend as mad as you like by sitting in and doing a podcast on a Monday evening.
I'll
And
tell
I'd
you
love to
what.
say it's because we up to so much over the weekend, but I wasn't really. I didn't get up to a whole hell of a lot.
You know what? I think this was one of those bank holidays. I think it's actually could be, or that it could be my favorite bank holiday. It's only around. It's only a new thing, but I think it could be my favorite because you're still looking at. I spent a lot over Christmas. Oh yeah, a lot
Yeah,
over Christmas, and now
yeah.
you have a bank holiday weekend, and you're like, oh, let's just do nothing. What's in the fridge? Like it's
Okay, okay, okay.
there was no obligation to go and meet people because I've done that a month ago. There was no, this gig is planned or the weather is great. Let's go on the beer. This is a waste of a bank
Hmm.
holiday weekend. Let's book a trip away. I didn't have any of those feelings. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to just play a bit of PlayStation today. No, obviously, if I could train, I would have trained. But it's, yeah, it was just, I actually feel really refreshed. I actually
Good.
feel like this is great. How do you feel about it?
I feel a little bit better after you said that, but otherwise, I felt like it was just, should I be doing something? Should I be doing something? It was just a weird, like, is it really a bank holiday already? Yeah, I was a little bit in limbo. Like, I went to the gym this afternoon. I had my boot camp this evening because I was like, here, I don't want to take it off, to be honest with you. But I was glad not to be in work at 6 o'clock in the morning. But I don't know. I wish I had a lot more insight into her, but I'm just like, it's a bit early for bank holiday. We got another 6 weeks of the Paddy's Day, and then the weather gets a bit better and stuff. What are you going to do in the first weekend in February when the weather's not that great?
Oh yeah, but just think of that, just time, just to take a breath. You made it to payday. Just be like,
Yeah, it was
now I've got
relief
a
more than anything else.
few days to just take it all in. I think it's a good thing. I think the fact that you're like,
Maybe,
should I be doing something? And then just going, no, no, I
but
shouldn't.
a lot of people didn't know, but not that they didn't know about it. It's the wrong way. But a lot of people didn't realize it because like it's like, Monday we're not open, like in terms of gym. Why not? It's like bank holiday. Oh yeah. And then I was like, what are you doing for? I don't know, haven't thought about it. And then it just kind of went and came by. I was kind of like, ah, that's it. Back in
Yeah,
work in the morning. Or back in work now as people listen to this episode of the podcast.
yeah, I don't know. I'm all for it. And even next year, I'll know what's happening, but I'll still be like, no, see that weekend there.
Even the day
Nothing is down
itself.
in that.
Like I saw
Nothing.
something today, it was like today is St. Bridget's Day. I'm like, no, it's not. It's the first. But seeing me, they're saying now because the bank holiday, it's today is St. Bridget. Like, I don't know.
They're changing it.
We better just we don't know what we're talking about here, so we better just hit the intro music for the podcast and switch gears in this one. So with that said, here's the intro music this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Let's go. So we're gonna switch gears in this, but I just realized in the intro you alluded to you ain't done any training over the weekend.
No, I haven't done anything. I'm 2 weeks with my new hair, and it's so
New
good.
hair, don't care.
New hair, don't care. So I'm
How
gonna.
are you coping with that? I like I talked in the podcast how I lost a bit of fitness and stuff after the last couple of runs in November. I didn't do too much in December, Christmas leading up and away in New York, and I'm making a ton of excuses. But basically, the watch wasn't tracking the VO2 max, and all of a sudden I did 2 runs next week, and I went from 54 to 51, and my times and marathons went from estimated of 320 something to 405, I think it was, and 5Ks went from 19 something to this is estimated on the watch again to like 22 minutes. And it just felt like after all the work I put in, this feels like crap. I may as well have had a running injury and just wasn't able to run and come back to fitness and start from scratch and not feeling as good as a run as I am now. Mentally, are you dealing with that at the moment? Because that can be a tough thing more so than physically. Do you feel like I should be doing something and I can't do anything? Or have you more accepted it?
Oh no, I've definitely accepted it. I think I've thought of it slightly differently, and I look back to kind of the episode that myself and Rachel were talking about the process and the little things and getting the little things right. So since we've had the procedure, obviously I've been like on the couch. I haven't done anything. Me and the PlayStation have become very accustomed to each other. But and that has been a fabulous experience as well. But like I focused on, and as I said, I was focusing on my food. because it was post-surgery, this, that, and the other, like, it was important for me to minimize the process in the food. So I went clean eating. And that doesn't mean I was eating broccoli and chicken and rice and a bit of hot sauce. And that was it. I was cooking food from scratch. I was making sure it had all the nice ingredients. We were having nice curries. We were having nice this. We were having nice that. You know, like, I was even eating the sandwiches. But yes, you're going to say I didn't bake the bread myself. But it was whole wheat. It was going, like, into the cleanest forms. I cut out the snacks, I cut out the sweets because I had to. And I know we said it jokingly, but when I came back from Turkey, it was 100 kilos. So there was Australia for 3 weeks, we had Christmas, and then we had my mission to eat every bar of chocolate in the house so I could officially start training and dieting. But the psyche changed. And in the space, what are we up to now? 8 days since we last talked?
Yeah.
I now weigh 94.5 kilos. So there's nearly a stone. And I know that sounds scary. Now, some of it was water away from the procedure.
Yeah,
okay,
of course,
we'll add a kilo, we'll add 2, maybe. So there's a good to 5.5 kilos that came off in a week of eating. And I mean, I didn't move off the couch. If I moved off the couch, I went to the toilet and then I went back to the couch. And I got up, I ate, I went back to the couch. But I just ate the good meals. I was having spinach, eggs, and whole wheat bread for breakfast. I was having a lunch that might have been pastas, sauces, loads of vegetables, all the leafy greens, some prawns in there for energy and anti-inflammatory stuff, so omegas. So I was eating, like, good, but beyond my 3 meals, and maybe a little sneaky, tiny mini ice cream out of Aldi in the evening. Just like, there's 7 days where we're after losing like 7 days 5 kilos. Like, it was nearly a kilo a day. Like, it's a substantial change, but it all leads back to body set point. And there's a lot of theories out there on where you are in terms of your weight. So the likes of you, Seán, you've always been slim. You look at your parents, they're slim. You look at everything else, you're kind of very slim. Eating bad foods, you might get a little bit bloated, but you tend to revert back. Like, I've seen some of the mountains you eat, and I'm like, how in the name of God is he doing it? But, like, certain people are able to eat all the crap they want, and everyone knows one of those people. They can eat what they want. If you know one of those people, most times it is genetics. It is just genetics. It's what shape your parents were in when you were conceived. It was your DNA as it was formed, and that's one of the great mysteries. Everyone's like, I don't have motivation all the time. And a lot of people will say, if you want to say, like, is it people's genetics? Is it their motivation? Or is it just they're lazy, or, whatever else? It tends to start with the genetics. You have to look at where people are. Like, when you look at the Middle East, they were nomads. They used to ride camels, long periods of lack of food, lack of water, rations. And now they've Western food, they've processed food. The obesity rate in the Middle East now is over 50%, particularly in females, because they're exposed to processed foods. When
is that not environment, though?
Environment is, so your home and your upbringing will protect you so much. Your parents shape the environment you're in, and you can compare different places. The environment you're in will dictate your habits more so than your family. Your family will keep you safe for a little while, but then you go to school, then you go to college, then you go to work, and then you're out for drinks with your friends. So the people you surround yourself with will tend to have a big influence on your eating habits, or your habits in general, or the foods that you're eating. Like, there's studies that it's actually really interesting. I had a bit of time, as everyone knows, but so there's a couple of studies that were done on identical twins who separated at birth through adoption.
Yeah.
But they actually followed them through their lives. One happened to go into a low socioeconomic family, quite a large family. The other was a little bit of money, but all slim pickings. The difference between the two twins in terms of body weight and body fat and stuff was only in between 5 and 10% of a difference.
10% in weight or body fat? Body
weight, like body composition in general, but to say, like, in terms of weight, if we're just talking about weight, or the normal to overweight kind of thing, there was only a difference in the two boys of about a 10% difference, and one was in the extreme of, like, an obese family, and the other was in a, like, fit family. So a lot of it is down to genetic, like how you're. It's kind of hard without going to rabbit hole. Your body will always try and control its level. So when you drink too much water, what do?
No, go to the toilet.
You go to the toilet. If you eat too much food, what did your body do? And this is where the mystery about obesity and food and what's your body trying to do. Like, your body will try and increase your metabolic rate to match the extra input. It's like, oh no, there's too much, burn, store. And that's why, like, people, if you go on yo-yo diets, you ever see people who do the fad diet, they come back and they're probably bigger than when they went on the diet the first time, is because they've introduced this new adaptation into their body where it's like, okay, we don't eat often, so next time we eat, or we under eat often, next time we have a big meal, what's the body going to do with everything? It's gonna store it.
Well, so are they not on something that's like, so there'll be studies done on like The Biggest Loser, where I think everyone will know, but if not, it's a TV show in America where they put them on like exercise of 4 or 5 hours a day and really restrict their food. So people lose, like literally 100, 150, 200 pounds, like insane weight. But then that's the environment they're in. So it proves that in theory it works, but once they're out of there, it's impossible to maintain because you ain't got Jillian Michaels screaming at you all the time, and you're not going to eat the same amount of food, so you don't automatically put that on. So now I know what you're saying with set points and stuff, that your set points will all change. I think there's a lot into that. But there's still a lot of environment to that though, right?
Yeah, the environment is good, and it's kind of like what I said when I was in Australia. It was like the outdoor lifestyle is amazing because that's the environment you're in. If you're not the one out running, you kind of feel a little bit different, like it is that kind of environment. And when people go back into their natural habitats, that's where they take over. But mostly, like, the body takes control whether you like it or not. The cravings won't go away, because as soon as you come out of that environment, your body's going to be like, beautiful, we're still hungry, fat boy. And that's what my body says to me when it comes to sugar. Like, it knows, like, eat the chocolate because it's full of calories. And sometimes in the past, you tried to do a fad diet or two.
I'll hold my hands up. Yes, I have.
And each of those times, each of those repetitions has had an effect on what my body is telling me to do, because it's like, you've starved us before.
Yeah.
So we're going to look after ourselves. And a lot of the time, like, there's certain like areas like the ghrelin that's released to tell you you're hungry. And then there's other hormones that are released to release satiety, which is like, you're full, stop eating.
Your leptin levels and stuff like that. But then is that what we're getting with genetics? So it's not exactly, it's more so the chemicals that are making you want to eat more or not want to eat more are suppressed or not suppressed based on your different habits and stuff, and the way you've pretty much crushed your body with the fad diets, and these levels are all messed up, and you need to eat, even though you're full, rather than, if you're on optimal diet, like, for example, you've lost, X amount by doing just nothing except nutrition over the last 8 days. So like, so it's at the end of the day, like, very simply, it's still calories in, calories out, but because of different genetics, it can mess with how much you're hungry and not hungry with certain people.
Yes. So the genetic end is definitely looking after what your body is naturally telling you. Eat. So there are some kids that they found out, I don't question it, I think it could be an Indian child. No matter what, I think he was 5 years of age and he weighed about 80 kilos. But no matter what, he was always hungry, and that's one of the things that can be inherited. And that's where, and obesity is a kind of a funny thing, and that's where I have sympathy, because it is an illness. It's not a willpower thing. It's not anything to do with that, because once you reach a certain point, you actually, like, you struggle to maintain insulin, you struggle to maintain these hormones, and then the hormones that are telling your brain you're full, because you've so much inflammation in your body because you're so obese, it actually blocks that signal, because it stops. So those who are in the obese cycle are actually in a vicious cycle then, because the hormones block to say you're full, because the inflammation is like, and it's if you were to imagine, it's just like, no we're not, it just keeps batting away at the signal. So then you just keep eating, and then you get more obese, more inflammation, the signal gets stronger, we're full, no we're definitely not, and that's why it can be a vicious cycle. So a lot of these people they're given a chance. So say we talked about The Biggest Loser, they're given a chance to get used to these hormones again, but that's where, like, you really have to watch yourself, and that's where the discipline, the environment and stuff comes in, because your body is going to be like, yeah, well, we need to store all this fat. Like, fat is the most efficient energy storage system the body has. and it will always try to do it, depending on what you're doing, your genetics. Genetics is a big part to play with it. And then there is the calories in, calorie out. And like, I suppose for me, I get away with eating what I eat. So for me, genetically, I probably wouldn't carry an obese gene, because eating the processed foods, like if you look at Fiji or countries like that, whereas 80 to 90% is obese in the country, because they weren't obese when they arrived, because their settlers, you have to go back into history to see, like, their settlers traveled how many thousands of miles. Only the ones who could slow their metabolism down the best could survive the longest journeys without food, etc., etc. Those people then mated with each other, developed a nation, but they were never obese up until the introduction of westernized processed foods. So it's the foods themselves that are causing the reactions in bodies. You know, the processed foods, the chocolates that you can eat, because they would have probably ate mountains of vegetables and mountains of, so they were eating quantities, but the food quality was always better. And that's where, like, for me personally, when you can take processed foods, depending on your body, and everyone is different, but for me, I noticed myself in a period of a week of cutting out the processed stuff, the sugars, the this, the that. I was like, my body just started to return back to the normal, trending to the 92 normal weight I normally carry around. So but then I don't carry the obese gene. I wasn't finding myself getting over the obese, and I do have the point where I know I'm overeating, but I'm just like, oh, that's so nice. Sorry, we're covering a lot of theories. I know.
Yeah.
Viral, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, I don't think it's as simple one way. I think there's a middle thing there. And the one thing that I've seen a lot of people talk about when it's definitely genetics, that person. Now, this coming from a personal training kind of background, and to be honest with you, if there is an issue, just for full transparency in this one, if you feel like you've got an issue with, you know, it could be genetics or there's something else going wrong here, and what you're doing is not working, I don't think you need a personal trainer. I think you need a dietitian to sort that out. So I'm saying that straight away. Having said that, I do think it's a thing, but I do think people are using it as a crutch now, for some people, because obesity is only a thing since the 1950s. And I think as a nation, collectively, we're all late. I mean, even take you on a Saturday night, you know, you could play PlayStation for 10 hours, whatever it is. You could watch Netflix for 10 hours or something. If you want to have a lazy Saturday night, even 20 years ago, you had to go down to Extravision, you know, walk around the shops and stuff. You're doing more general moving, or you had to come back and even lighting the fire and stuff like that, whereas we're not moving much anymore. And I do think there's an issue for a lot of people where it is, you need to go to the dietitian and figure out exactly what's going on. But I do, and as blunt as it is, I do think there's just a lot more people who start moving.
Yeah, no, I do agree.
I think there's an answer somewhere. To me, there's an answer somewhere in the middle. With that,
so there's a few things. Like, there is the basics in the calories in, calories out, and it is a good science. It is a fantastic science for it. And if you're in the I'm trying to be X kilos, then calories in, calories out is brilliant. If you're looking at yourself, and most people probably listen to this, I don't know, we've probably never had to worry about this kind of thing. It's just because we're on the topic and talking about obesity and stuff. Calories in, calories out is one aspect of a whole body feedback loop. You also have to consider what else is going on in the body. What foods am I eating that is causing me to go, you know, like there's so much more in this feedback loop that the body is trying to maintain itself naturally. So, like, there's even studies on the basal metabolic rate since the 1950s up until today, that the natural, like, people are consuming, I'll have to come back to you with the figures, but let's say, for argument's sake, probably not the exact ones, but it was an increase similar to these numbers. The average Joe was eating 2,000 calories.
Was in the 50s?
Yeah, 50s. Okay. That was your average diet. As we progressed, I think it was up to your modern day human, on average, is eating somewhere between 2.5 up to 3.5.
And moving less.
Yes, but the percentage of obesity does not match the overall world population eating more. You know, when you look at America, we'll say America because it's a huge, we'll call it first world country with a mass populace. So by right, they all should be obese if all of them are eating, nearly like another 100% of their calories have gone from 2,000 to 3,000. But what the body is developing is increasing its metabolic rate naturally to take on the excess food that's taken in. So it's proof that there is a feedback loop, that the body is like, it's more than we need, but we can process. It's more than we need, but we can process, because it will raise and lower depending on, like if you go through a point of starvation, the body will start to reduce your basal metabolic rate. It'll start to lower it down, so you burn less energy, trying to conserve energy. And then it ends into the storage mode. So you have to look at what's changed since then. What foods have we started eating since then? What's come in? Fast food started to be introduced into the world. How do we make foods last longer on the shelf? So you add in stuff that stops going off. You take out different omegas. This makes food go off quicker, so you increase shelf life. Therefore, you're adding in other stuff. You're adding processes into it, which in turn may have an effect on someone's body. So food industry has changed over the last 60 years. But yes, people are moving less. A lot more work used to be more labor intensive. Now it's all tech. It's all sit by the desk. So where I think you're right is people are being caught out now because they're moving less, therefore showing the bits of overweight, but not necessarily obese.
Is there a case though that it's getting more extremes? Like those who are doing sports and stuff. Like I can give you an example. I was listening to the David Goggins book, and when you listen to the first one, it's like 100 people were in Hawaii doing the Kona mile race or something like that, or whatever it was. I'm mixing up different events there, but anyway, point is, wasn't many people doing ultramarathons, and then he jumps to Moab 240. And there's like hundreds of people. Like there's literally, he can't believe how people there. And like every time he's doing something, has to take selfies and stuff like that. And he feels obligated to do it. But the point is, everyone's there smiling and joking. And even if you look at the 1950s, I don't think there was many marathon races at all. Where even like look at Dublin now. I mean, 5-6 years ago, you could probably sign up in the summertime to get into Dublin Marathon if you wanted. Now, like by January, where you can get into October, like more and more people are doing more and more different running events and different activities, stuff like that. And there's the drift of more people doing this side, and there's drift on this side where they're doing nothing at all. I think there's more extreme, like maybe there isn't. I've no studies to this, just my own looking at it, which could be completely wrong, is that you have the people that are like, there's only like, I remember a 2014 study, like 16% of the population only regularly use the gym. So they're doing that, they're doing runs, doing all the rest, and you got this big divide doing this thing. And then people, once they leave school, they never do any sort of activity again. They go the opposite way. They're not moving as much. I think the extremes are getting bigger. So those that are eating obviously more processed foods and stuff like that, if they are, but they're still doing a lot more activity than those that aren't.
Yeah, and well, I think you have to look at the health, fitness and cosmetic industry itself, in that seeing is believing. Like in 1969, everyone saw a man walk on the moon, so everyone wanted to be an astronaut. Now we're seeing influencers with their 8-packs, with their this, with their that, the David Goggins of this world, who are telling us don't be soft and get out there, stay hard, run ultra marathons. And people are like, maybe I will. Whereas, people wouldn't have really factored that in, because different circumstances in their lives, different priorities in their lives. Whereas now that side of the world is so open and ready to anyone, anywhere. You used to just hear stories of people climbing Mount Everest. Now there's a queue to get to the top. People are dying waiting to get to the top. Whereas it used to be the mad couple of Egypts going up Mount Everest. And as you rightly said, 2016, we got our marathon tickets 4 months before the race. Or 17. I think it was 17
we did
months.
it. We're early enough anyway getting them, but we no issue getting them in 2017 is the point. There was definitely not a lottery or anything like that, and that's only 5-6 years ago.
So and that's why the influencer market is so big. That's why it's like, if they're an influence, everyone talks about influencers, because people are influenced by it. People are trying to be like them. People are trying to be like David Goggins. Me and you go do the 4x4 by 48 just because we've seen a guy on Instagram. And then we got his book, and then we thought he was cool, and then we're, so, and then now I'm not saying people are seeing on the obese side, them guys are huge, I want to be that big, but the world, as you have correctly said, has gotten so convenient. Food is right there at the click of a button. It is easier and sometimes cheaper to get the takeaway than it is to go to buy the whole produce, depending on where you live. We're quite privileged in Ireland that fresh produce is so close by the shops, the markets and stuff. So we have a very good standard of food in the country.
And cheaper than somewhere like America, by the way. I saw a bag of frozen broccoli. I'm not even lying, $7, which is €7 for a bag of broccoli frozen.
we were in Alabama. We tried to buy fresh chicken fillets just because we knew how much crap was in things, and 2 fresh chicken fillets were $12. So
we're lucky in Ireland in that respect.
We are in that respect, and our produce is very good. It's like it's world renowned. Our beef is great. Our chickens are great. Our farmers are really good. You know, our cereals are fantastic. So we have a great climate for growing these things. But so we are lucky in that sense, and that's probably why we are doing so well. But obesity is growing. But then you have to look at what's in the meals that are microwavable. You know, what's in the stuff that's just easier to get. It's quicker, it's convenient, you know, and that's where people who have gotten away with it now, they don't realize they do, but they may possess a gene that it says we are on the obese side. Certain foods are going to blow us up. And I'm not blaming foods. I'm not saying pizza is what's doing it. It's just the quantities in which you will then eat these foods won't have a good effect on you because you can't really control it. Whereas if you're eating a bowl of broccoli, it's going to have a big difference to, or, you know, a homemade chicken and rice thing. Yes, it's still massive calories, but not to the same extent of what your McDonald's is going to have, and how much McDonald's are you going to have to eat to satisfy you the same as everything else.
But that's the big thing, the satisfy thing. Now I could have 2 or 3 chicken burgers at McDonald's and it could be 2,000 calories, and I feel like I go home and have a proper dinner afterwards, because
and this
satiation there is different there, and that's, I suppose, what's coming into the chemicals and all the rest that I would know.
And that's where I'm probably getting at in terms of where the bodies is different. It's that satisfied feeling, where that is for you, and the foods you eat to make you feel satisfied. So if you're eating that massive bowl of food, like 4 turkey burgers from the butchers with a handful of rice and a load of veggies, and eat that, and then you'll be like, I'm full. But the calorie difference of that between 4 battered sausages, and I've done it, I've eaten the battered sausages, I love the battered sausages.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm not going to hate them. But and I will do that pig out. I will eat the entire Chinese and the chips and the prawn crackers because I'm not full. But I can do that then when it comes to other stuff. And I know the calorie hit isn't as big, but I get that feeling of full, you know. So especially after big runs, Sean, I'd eat a mountain after it, you know, some of the big ones.
Here's what I really don't know the answer to this. So someone listening to the podcast is like, that's me, have the obesity gene, have to have it. Would something like going, and I've never done this, but I've always been interested in doing it, is getting your blood work done. Would that come up, hey, certain levels are low in this, and this? Would that give any sort of indication for it? Or how would someone know? Or why is this obesity gene a thing? Like, is there a way of figuring out, hey, I got this, I don't got this? Or
there is definitely
what's the
something
process
in
there?
I forget the name, and again, look, we ended up down this rabbit hole, so I'd have to go back and look at the correct biological name of things. But there are things that are buried into the DNA. That's, you know, I don't know if it's probably from your blood work that they can determine for you. But again, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, but there are certain elements that you can say, yes, look, you possess this kind of gene, which can be seen in people who give obesity. So they may advise you on better courses of action in terms of the food you're letting past your lips. And they're basing this off a lot of what they've seen from around the world, like in Fiji, in 1970, the UAE obesity was 0. And now they've westernized, brought in all the nice foods, and now in females is over 50%. 1 in 2 females in the Middle East is overweight. And the only thing they can come back to is how their environment, one, a desert. Yeah. It was barren. It was food was scarce. And this was born into. This was their lives. They were fishermen. They ate the odd bit of fish, you know, and Pearl, the fishermen. And then all of a sudden food was available. It was readily available. It was high calorie, you know, and
they will have as much as you can.
Yeah.
It's going to happen again.
And that's it. So it's not to say that you have the obesity gene. That's it. That's the end of the road for you. This is just how you are. It's not. It means you have to really consider what it is you're doing. You know, it's It's what's your lifestyle. And that's where we get back into your environment. And it's like, if you don't leave yourself with the plan of the week, and your plan can be to eat the 3 chicken fillets with rice, with broccoli, with a nice sauce and stuff. But if that's the plan, as opposed to eating the extra large pizza with the stuffed crust, because you do that twice a week, it's
some people need a lot more discipline to get on track and stay on track than other people due to this.
Yeah, and as we said, motivation.
But there's still a positive outcome, but you just need to be more set in habits and discipline. And there's a lot more going to it. It's a lot easier said than done. I don't mean that as in hey, personal responsibility, just get on with it and do it and stuff like that. It's a lot easier for some people than it is for others.
And especially, and one thing I will ask is, that person's body is screaming at them, telling them to eat everything they can.
Yeah.
And try and hold in going to the toilet. And that, I know it's an extreme example, but that feeling is what can get to people. It'll develop anxiety. You can watch people, and they have studied obese people, grossly obese people, and the anxiety over them. They're sweating because they're like, I'm hungry. They're not, clearly not, but their body is just taken over. And that is it. It is as bad as that. Now, we're talking extremes, but I suppose if we were to bring it back into our own kind of circle, is I've recognized my own, okay, my body's telling me to keep eating, but I have taken on enough here. And the ability to learn to put the fork down and say, you know what, that will be nice. In maybe 2 hours, I can have that instead of eating something else, or I'll have it for lunch tomorrow. I'm really enjoying it, but let's enjoy it again tomorrow, because that's enough. And that's something I've had to learn for myself because and that's why, I don't know, it's maybe my upbringing. I hate wasting food. And when someone piles my plate, I just say challenge it.
Yeah, I'm the same with that. But I can go a normal Sunday, let's say normal Sunday between now, because football season's over for all intents and purposes, until September. I'll have me meals and stuff, but after, I might have a roast Sunday dinner or whatever, and I'll have maybe a dessert or something afterwards, and I'll be done. But let's say it's Sunday night before Niners are playing at 9 o'clock. They're going to have all that, and I'm full, but I can still have one of those massive bag of hunky-dories that are probably 1,000 calories, and if I open that up, I'll find my brain just goes and downs and stuff like that, and there's the extra calories there without thinking. It's very easy to add on from there, just because that's my habit and go-to. Then if I'm watching the football, where if I had a small pack of crisps there, I'd probably just have a small pack of crisps to have nothing else, and I'd be a bit hungry for a few minutes, and then I'd forget about it. And
look, if we bring a full circle, so your weekly job is training people. You get your training session in between training people. You're active. You're on your feet. You're jumping around. You're scouting. So your body is like, this is normal. This is normal. This is normal. This is how much food we're getting in. Everything's great. We get to Sunday, eat the food. It's like, this is great. Still loads of food. Wasn't as nice food, but we're still functioning because this fella makes us do all the running. What's this? Oh, it was another 2,000 calories you weren't expecting. Shove it in there. And the body's like, right. And this is where we talk about how the body reacts to it. It has a feedback loop, same as drinking the water. It's like, right, we're not used to this much food, but we don't really need to store fat because we're very efficient, which your body is. You have a very low body fat percentage. And it's like, let's just increase our basal metabolic rate for tonight. And that's where you may have an uncomfortable sleep. The body is working to try and produce all this extra energy it has to burn up. And bodies will do that. It'll act the same as you do when you're drinking your water and you go to the toilet, you drink 4 liters, you go to the toilet more. The bodies will try and maintain you within a degree. It's when you do that excessively, it has to put its hand up and say, I can't help store its fat. So your Sunday night, because then Sunday is followed by Monday, and then you're in and you're doing a heavy squat day. And it's like, thank God we had the extra last night, so.
Very thankful, yeah.
And it's when you break that and it starts to become a 1 day a week to a 2 day a week to a 3 day a week. Then we get into the phase where the body's like, I am trying. I am very much trying, but I can't keep up. And that's where it becomes there. And it's like me, I'd eat a giant bar of dairy milk, 3,000 calories. I wouldn't bat an eyelid at it. I'd eat it in a heartbeat. And that's where over Christmas, the indulgence happens.
That's the foods that weren't there 50, 60 years ago, was it? And then that's
it. and even the quantity of sugar, like the amount of sugar that the average person is consuming compared to 50 years ago is absolutely massive. Like sugar used to be a very expensive commodity, but has now just become available in everything. And then, you know, when you try and increase the shelf life of food, so you take out all the natural goodness and then you take out the fats, because everyone says fats are bad. And that was something that was decided by a few rogue studies years ago. And then government made a policy. So you reduce the amount of fats and thing. And then I was like, oh, it's not as tasty. It's like, oh, well, make it tasty. Oh, well, we add some sugar in. Oh, yeah, that's tasty.
Yeah.
And it'll last 6 months and it doesn't taste like cardboard. And then we keep fucking shoving it into people. Because at the end of the day, like, industry creates research. So if you are the Coca-Cola, you want the study. And you want to pay the scientists to do the study. And I'm not saying, oh, sorry, I've named Coca-Cola. It could be any company. It could be like Eric's Bread. And I pay the scientists to do a study on the effects of this, this, and this. And then they come back and they run 10 studies. So say milk, right? We'll just take milk. Like, milk makes your bones stronger or makes people run faster over 100 meters if they drink one glass of milk every day for 5 years. So then I commission a study and I get one scientist. He runs one group of 10 people. He follows them for 10 years or 5 years. And it turns out they actually just ran the same speed. And I'm like, oh, that's not the answer I was looking for. So I commissioned 10 scientists to run 10 studies amongst 10 different people. And in 2 of those studies, the dudes ran faster and the girls ran faster. And I said, cool, legally not obligated to mention the other studies, because these 2 worked. They were independent studies of each other, run by different scientists, and they're the studies we're going to publish. Therefore, drinking milk makes you run faster if you drink it every day over the year. And that is what is dictating food development policies, health policies. And that's where good nutritionists, and I hope I'm not offending anyone, I'm giving very basic knowledge of stuff that have opened my eyes over the last 2 years surrounding food. But it's like that's what you're dealing with when it comes to food and nutrition. So understanding your own body, and as you said, maybe it is a blood test, maybe it is a trip to a dietitian, but you know, a balanced diet, and if it comes from the ground or it's easily obtainable from you or it's locally sourced, it's in its purest form, then you're probably getting the best of the best. Do you know, if the less process involved in it, the cleaner the fuel, the better the body is functioning off it. But like, it's nice to have a bar of chocolate or an ice cream or the burger or the bread.
Everything in moderation.
Exactly. It's when you're overloading it that you're gonna come into these kind of problems. And look, I know that's another tangent. That's probably we could probably do a whole season on the influence or the change in just food over the last I don't know how many years. Like, but it's like. And that's where, like, cooking food, and like people talk about the caveman diet. I only eat raw this and raw that. But the cooking food was the greatest discovery of humans. Like, it's the reason we are what we are today, is because it already helped the digestion process. It allowed our digestive tract to shrink and our brains to grow. So, like, the discovery of cooking was absolutely amazing. So when people are like, "I only eat raw this and raw that," I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you know,
yeah,
cooking at the odd time. So it's there's a lot to it. There is an amazing thing to it. Do I go around swatting away all the badness? No, absolutely not. I'll have my crisps and I'll have this and I'll have that. But when it comes to meal prep Monday to Friday, it's a homemade curry or it's a homemade chili with minces and spices, and I'm adding in different gingers and whatever else, and I'll look up the health benefits of different spices, and I'll say, oh, well, I have this, and they have anti-inflammatory properties, and I've got all these races coming up, and I've just after surgery, so I'll add them in. So it's fun to explore food then. It's fun to become your own scientist. It's fun to kind of say, well, what happens to me if I just cut out the process? So instead of making the big pizza, what happens if I make my own dough? Do you know, and I'm not saying don't eat pizza. I'm saying maybe get your own flour, yeast, water, a little bit of sugar, because it's in everything anyway, a little bit, you know, and put it in yourself, and then see what your body starts to do when the sources are more natural, I suppose, and less processed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was just thinking I just said that, like, it's when you get takeaway, like I got a takeaway recently, and for some reason it was a big goo for a takeaway, and I was just after, I was like, That wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. I don't know if that relates back to anything you're saying there, but like, for some reason I just clicked in my head. Like you kind of have that big goof or something, and just like, that wasn't built up as much as I thought it was. It was all right, but it wasn't anything like, oh, thank God I had that chipper. But then I'm thinking with chipper, I'm like, ooh, mind a chipper. But it's getting late in life for that.
And look, the thing about it is, like in most chippers in Ireland, and again, it comes back to
don't piss off chippers now.
No, but I worked in a chipper for a longest time, and
right,
like the ingredients, like when the fish comes in and it's fresh fish, they are sausages, their beef is good Irish beef. Like they might have a slightly higher fat content, but in terms of a chipper, they're not actually the worst thing in the world. You know, the worst is obviously the frying. And then it comes down to what they're frying it in, and and that's where you're getting into the bad things. But in terms of a bit of batter, like batter is flour and sparkling water mixed together, so it's with a bit of seasoning, and it's not necessarily that, it's deep frying of things that adds in the problems. So in fairness to chippers in Ireland, the produce is actually quite good. It's great standard. It's just a method in which they're cooked that absorbs a bit of fat and grease that adds the calories. And that's the difference. And like, even when you get down to oils, oil only use, and this is only a very recent thing, the vegetable oils and stuff I've stopped using. I was like, because of the manufacture process.
Okay.
Like it's a science in itself to make vegetable oil. You have to cook the seeds to this temperature, and then you have to add this chemical to them to produce this and then this. And again, it was just something that was decided by a group of scientists to say this is a good thing for the future. Whereas olive oil naturally produces oil. Olives naturally give you the oil. There's not much of a manufacturing process into the olive oil, but it's more expensive. So the cheaper option is vegetable oil. Like, you can run a car off vegetable oil.
Kind of wish you told me that when the diesel was up so much. I know that's green diesel. You're heading in a bad path there now, Eric.
My point is...
Getting pulled over the lads, the podcast told me.
People pouring in the vegetable oil. No, but like, and this is great. It's like, vegetable oil is so good. You can run a car off it. I was like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
No, you want that in your body then. I'm very confused. I know I'm well out of my comfort zone, not comfort zone, my expertise here now talking about. I mean, you can probably tell me at this stage milk would help the car run. I'm like, well, it works for cows. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but like it's just there's a lot to be in. And look, at the end of the day, like, Nestle is one of the largest. Like, their turnover is massive. They're one of the largest food companies in the world, and like they are that way because they do market research. They put money into things to get what's the nicest tasting. And like, there's some, like, even a sausage, like, no one wants to know what's in a nice super quick sausage, but it tastes really good.
That's all that matters.
So, and that's all that matters. But like, it's just little things like that. It is little things like that. Like, am I anti-vegetable oil? Have you had vegetable oil in your house and kind of just walk out? Absolutely not, because it's in a moderation. But it's but there's a lot of information out there, and probably too much information. And that's what I found from reading a couple of books.
Information overload.
Yeah, well, I've probably bought into what's been told to me, and then you have to ask yourself, well, who's telling them that? And you kind of have to trust but verify, and that's the problem. Yeah, I suppose.
We're all heavily influenced now by the different circles and stuff we see. Even this conversation now, I'd be heavily influenced by strength coaches and stuff like that. So, so that's why I wouldn't be totally on board with genetics. It's not because I know any better or I've read the research in depth and stuff. I've read a small bit, but I'd be more like, hey, it's calories in, calories out, and it's training, not necessarily, that all kind of balances itself out together. Whereas you would have read more nutrition books on, hang on, here's what's going on out here, here, and here. So you would have a different point of view. And I suppose people listening kind of have to go, oh, well, they might pick up a lot of things you said in the podcast and go, actually, this makes sense for other things I'm hearing over here. I'm going to go with that. And then, they might pick up something I said. Actually, no, this makes sense more to maybe there's personal trainers or stuff listening and go, actually, this person's saying this and this as well. I more agree with this side. And that's how these things are. And combine that, all the stuff you're saying about different studies and what kind of studies are more reputable than others, and whether it's a meta-analysis or it's just one particular study has been shown as gospel, whereas how controlled was that study done and all the rest. Like, there's so many different rabbit holes, stuff we can go into this. I'm going to wrap it up with a weird question for you, though, because you mentioned a few times like everything in moderation, and you've gone on to vegetable oil and different like that. Is there anything where you've read in now where you're like, oh, I used to have that? Or like you're talking about, for example, the obvious one was like sausages or puddings made of. But when you've gone down these different rabbit holes of nutrition, and maybe just the answer is no, Sean, there's not everything in moderation. I eat what I eat. But is there something where you're like, I used to eat that, but now that I know more about it, that's not for me anymore?
Yeah, to answer you that, yes. I used to think no fat was good. 0% fat, give it to me, because there's no fat now. I don't want to be fat, because fat is a word associated with what I used to be, and I don't like it. Yeah. But now I look at it and go, well, fat is good. Saturates are good. Not like, as long as you're getting them from good sources. You shouldn't really be against fats or saturated fats. What is one thing I will look for that has trended into a lot of foods and is in the likes of the vegetable oil I talked about is trans fats. Trans fats are dangerous. And they're the ones that are trending into more of our foods, that are in our long life donuts, our long life stuff, that if it's lasting on a shelf for a long time, I'd be questioning what kind of level of trans fats are in it, because they have an effect on the, so your cholesterol. There's two types of cholesterol again. I'll have to go back into the books and learn off the abbreviation, but there's two types. And it has obviously cholesterol is a good part of the body. Some of it is bad, but it has a negative effect on both the good part and the bad part. So it increases the bad part, but decreases the good part. So trans fats have a serious negative effect on them. And that's from my own research. I'm hoping someone comes on to the podcast next week and puts me in my place, but they probably won't. So that's pretty much one thing I would really look for. And I love my donuts and I love my cakes, but I do have to start asking myself what's in it. So when I'm looking for things, I'm looking for the likes of trans fats, because they are a big no-no, and I wouldn't go near them again. It's something that I'm kind of like, now that I know what they do, I was like, oh no, they help with the whole artery clogging thing. So it's in terms of cholesterol, they're the one, it just can't be broken out. They cling on to everything. They cause nightmares inside it. But it's not necessarily saturated fats, not normal fats, as long as they're coming from good sources. And again, in moderation as part of a balanced diet. So it's one of those many things that I just avoid more of. And like that, I use olive oil now as opposed to vegetable oil, but I used the last of my vegetable oil. I wasn't going to just throw it down the sink. So I did use the last of it, but now I'm just like, look, I'm just going to use olive oil from now on. It's just for the couple of extra euros or the little bit of frying I'm doing, because it's just one of those things. I've started changing my life. And look, another study will come out in another year and we'll be saying how black pudding is great for you again. And
superfood.
It's a superfood.
I forgot I was in a podcast. I got the bunny ears up on the superfood there, and the black pudding. In case someone's like, "See, being serious right now." What my opinions changed on a lot of things, and sure, I bought into that hype of superfood. I used to throw into my chicken fillet rolls back in college, thinking I was doing well.
Yeah, and
things we did.
But and look, I am no expert, and I've traipsed my way through a conversation trying to recant everything because we went that way. And
yeah, but I think it's good that opinions and stuff change over time. Anyway,
absolutely.
Stuff like now, where I even this podcast we talked about before. Like I wouldn't believe stuff I said in the podcast 3 years ago. I'm like, don't exactly believe it anymore. I think it's a good thing to own up and go, yo, I did believe this. I don't believe that now. Instead of there's not a hill I'm going to die on. So I think that's a problem now, because you talked about earlier, but like, I know we ran long this podcast, but you talked about earlier about like, like in caveman diets and stuff like that. But that's what people put on their Instagram bios now. And that they were people where I wouldn't listen to, because they're going to die in that hill. No matter what they read now, they're known as the guy who eats the caveman food. So any research, any study can come out, but they're making their money off that, and they're more likely selling products off that somehow, or they're selling diet plans off, I'm the caveman guy, and these are the great things that work for me. Now, there are some cases where people have had life-changing stuff delivered through food, and that's something I don't know a lot about to talk about, but there's also people, charlatans out there, for lack of a better word, where they're like, I am the paleo guy, I am this guy, this is the absolute, not just paleo, if someone's on paleo, I don't want to, whatever, but like they're on this thing and like this is the only thing because of this study, whereas it's probably a contradiction study out in this. So I think there is a bit of you trust the person, the dietitian out there. It's not like this is the only way. It's like these are what different studies say. Make your own decision from there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Look, if anything, I know we expected to
put it in a bow for us, Eric.
We expected to talk about not training and different things. We ended up down this rabbit hole. But I hope that if you're listening, that at least this conversation has made you think about what you take as gospel. Like, you know, like, well, I thought this was a healthy protein bar, you know, like, and it's what is marketing doing, and who has said that it's healthy, and what is it doing for you, and understanding your own body, and what makes you get there, and if you do appreciate that, like anything else, the body is trying to control something in the best way that the body has learned, be it from when it's conceived, born, reared in the environment it's in. So, you know, I'm not saying, and this is where I suppose fat shaming has been a very big topic. And I do agree with it in the sense, but I agree with it in the sense as long as that person has been given the entire education of how they can get themselves out of it, as opposed to saying, well, you're fat. But, you know, if you were told, listen, this is what your body is doing, this is the problems that you can do it, and this, what's your choice? Oh, no, that's too hard. I'm not doing that. And then have at it. I don't care. You know, but it's because one is it's not that it's, well, yes, it is unhealthy. It's medically unhealthy. That's why it's called that. It's just, my point is for people, not like just one, have a bit of sympathy, because it's not always their fault.
No.
And then the more of us that become aware of that it is not their fault, and how do you fix that? How do I recognize what my body is doing? And even for me, like the yo-yo, I knew it was 100 kilos. I was like, that's it. The processed food is gone. A week later, the body starts going, oh, thank God. Yes.
But to your point from the start of this podcast, like the CDC in America have classified obesity as a disease, but it's also like the fourth leading cause of death in the world is obesity. So there's an issue there. There's a huge fucking issue. But and there's something with, hey, I'm okay with being this big or obese. It's like, in theory, you're killing yourself, but it's not as easy. It's.
And listen,
it's a touchy topic there where you're going down that avenue with it, you know.
Yeah, no, and listen, I don't get me wrong, I'm okay with them being that way too. Like everyone each to their own, it's their own choice. But if they ever look for help, I really just hope that they get those informations. That one, yes, a lot of the time it's not your fault, and now you're in a vicious circle. You're going to need help to get out of that vicious circle. You're going to need to talk to someone.
But you can get out of it.
And that's the aim. The aim is that you can. And that's where people are turning to surgery. And that's a whole other ball game, but it's starting to prove like it is a helping factor.
Before we go down that rabbit hole, Eric.
Wrap it up, Sean.
I'm pulling the plug on it. But I will say, if people are interested or something there that myself, especially myself in this one, because it's not my area of competency, which is the word I'll be trying to say for this entire podcast. Do let us know and stuff. Message us on Instagram on DM at any given training day. So it might be something we go to part 2 next week. If we don't hear much DMs, we'll just go on to something else completely. We might actually talk about not training and injuries and stuff. We head more down that field. We originally meant to talk in this episode of the podcast. But if it is kind of like, hey, I've got, this thing, or maybe you've got blood work done, was told this, or there's something there that piqued your interest in this episode of the podcast, do hit us up in DM. It'd be great to hear from you guys, more from you guys. And that's pretty much it on my end, unless Eric keeps talking about something there to wrap up this episode.
Absolutely not. If other people have different theories, I've heard different things, like there's no end to the knowledge I want to get on it, or want to talk about it, or discuss on it. And I take no offense if someone is like, well, this doesn't work for me, because everyone is right. Everyone is doing the best thing that's by them. I've just acquired the knowledge that suits my body, and I've talked about it today. So it's definitely something that suits me, and it's not going to be compatible with everyone, and not everyone will agree. And that's for different various reasons. But I just say keep learning, keep your eyes open into how nutrition can bring you to the other extreme we were talking about, in terms of performance, in terms of health, in terms of strength, and can help you achieve goals. And I suppose that's where the interest came for me. But in recent times, it's okay, how do I maintain weight when I'm not training? And that's what this episode was all about. So,
I think that's what we'll call the episode. And on that note, guys, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. The podcast will be back to normal, dropping on Mondays. Thank you for listening and subscribing. That's it for myself and Eric. Take care.
Bye.